The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on the break!
with Ambar Garcia, Bryan Broaddus, Nick Harris, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Wednesday, February 12th, 2025, Season 20, Episode number 102. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. Live from SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star, presented by LG. LG is the world's #1 OLED TV brand for 11 years and counting. See why at LG.com/OLED Evo. We got the crew back together. We did not have a show last week because so many people just decided they didn't want to come to work. Everybody at this table except for me. And but now we got you guys back. Happy everybody's back. I'm sure you got some great stories from your trips to the Super Bowl, and Amber had a little family
Vacation.
trip. Yeah, so everybody had a
Disney
Very cool. Land or world?
World.
Very
It was
cool.
fun.
Diego's first time, so you know that was magical.
He had a blast. He was great.
That's awesome.
You know,
That's
it's
awesome.
magical. But you guys coming back from the Super Bowl, and actually I wanted to start the conversation there. Obviously, the Eagles get their win. They get their second championship in the history of their franchise. As you watch that game, and I found myself doing this, so I thought it'd be an interesting question just to go around the table. What do you think was the biggest takeaway you had as you put it in Cowboys world and you watch the Eagles do what they did? And obviously knowing this is a league where it's a copycat league, people typically look for things that are successful, and they try to do some of them, not all of them, but some of them. What was the biggest takeaway that you grabbed from that Eagles game? You're like, that's what the Cowboys need, or that's what the Cowboys need to do.
Can I look at it from a totality rather than
Sure.
just the game?
Yeah.
Stephen Jones has said that the Eagles eventually their payday is going to come as far as all the investments that they've made into their roster, and he's right. But how much do you balance that with sacrificing it for the now and trying to push for a Super Bowl for the now? And Jerry Jones said last offseason, and he said again on the NFL Honors red carpet in New Orleans last Thursday night, is said, we're not building for the future, we're trying to win now. And I think if that's truly the case, then they can look at what the Eagles have done as far as, okay, hey, we're going to shorten our window by about 2 years by investing so much on both sides of the ball here, but it's going to give us a better chance during that window. And obviously it worked out for Howie Roseman. He gets to put a ring on his hand, and whenever the cap hell is coming around the corner, then he can wipe it with a ring on his hand. And I think you have to balance that, and that's the balancing act of a GM. It's what makes this league difficult from a GM's perspective. But I think that's one thing I look at and saying, like, hey, the Rams sacrificed it, they got a ring out of it. The Buccaneers sacrificed it, they got a ring out of it. And now the Eagles have done the same thing. So you wonder, maybe that's the bread and butter of figuring this thing out.
It's about really the ability to navigate the draft and then free agency, how important both of them are. If you look at the key player, even though he didn't play the key role in that game, with Barkley and going out and they made the commitment to go out and get him, spend $11 million to get that particular player, even though there's the injury history and all that. The draft was outstanding for him. Cooper DeJean, you look at Quentin Mitchell, you look at those guys and the way that they played with those guys in the secondary, the draft picks that they made throughout. The Georgia kids are starting to show up now. I mean, there was that was something. They had multiple first-round picks. They moved around. They earmarked players and were able to get them. Some players fell right to them. They made the picks. It just showed me how important is the balance between the free agency and the draft is to building your football team.
I wanted to ask you something, and this is not because I completely agree with your point, and this is not to argue with it, but with someone that's not 100% super knowledgeable with the cap and the money and all of that.
Nobody is.
But right, it's so complicated.
Even the people that work on it.
Dang. But at what point do you get to that? Because we keep hearing, okay, your hands are so tied, right? But when do you get to a point that you can actually make those moves or have the ability to put that kind of money and invest in that way.
Let's we can put it out from the Cowboys' perspective.
Yes,
That's easier.
yes.
This offseason specifically, and you go on Spotrac or you go on Over the Cap, and yes, there are things you can do with the current cap number that the Cowboys have available going into this offseason. However, it's not as easy as just clicking a button on Spotrac or overthecap.com. Yes, you could restructure Terrence Steele this offseason. Yes, you could restructure Trayvon Diggs. Yes, if you got a Micah Parsons deal done today, that could allow you to push some of that money down the line and maximize the 2 to 3 year window that you have right now. Yes, and I think that should be priority number one when you go into this offseason, is saying like, hey, we need to get Micah Parsons done before March 12th when the new league year hits, so we know what we're spending in free agency. If I were the Cowboys, that's what I would be saying. But you can move some of those things along to create more money for now. And that's, you look at what Philadelphia did last year as far as getting Jalen Hurts done early, Devontae Smith done early. It allowed them to kind of figure out what they want to do as far as pushing that money down the line. They were able to bring in Saquon Barkley. They were able to bring in Zach Bond, who was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And granted, they're going to have to pay that bill when that time comes because they push that money down the line. So that $90 million cap hit or whatever for Jalen Hurts that's coming in 27, I think, that's coming, and that's going to be really difficult to get out of. But they got a ring out of it. So it's from the Cowboys' perspective, I think they don't want to be in that situation at any point in time. So they don't create that. And part of that's respectable, but I think also you also have to look at, okay, a lot of these teams that are winning rings and have rings on their hand, they've sacrificed. Does there come a point to where you eventually have to sacrifice?
But I also think part of it is I think they did it. They did it a different way. But the amount of money that they spent primarily on their own players in that 2000 to 2003 window, that was really their window. Like they had a team that they built that was on paper good enough to do some stuff. They just missed their window, in my opinion. And now they had to pay the piper last year. Like it was like, okay, now you got to pay the bill on what you've had the last 3 years, and you didn't get to that promised land with the strategy you took, the players you decided to pay. Now, they never went all in like the Eagles from the standpoint of we're going to go out in free agency and spend that kind of money. But they certainly were spending money on their own guys and re-signing their own guys. And so I just believe like they had a window. They just didn't achieve what they wanted to achieve in that window.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I was just curious because I was looking up Jalen Hurts because he never makes more than $50 million a year. And the cap hit you're talking about, the $97 million, that comes in 2029.
Yeah.
I mean, he makes his cap number this year.
Wait, how long is his deal?
His deal actually goes through. They've got voidable years going through this thing all the way through. Looks like 2032.
Holy wow!
Yeah.
So when he did it, it was like a
they got him
deal?
before. They got him on his rookie deal. They got him to sign it on his rookie deal. His cap number this year was $13.5 million. His cap number next year is $21.8. The following year is $31.9.
Very manageable for a quarterback.
The cap year in 2027, $42.1. 2028, $47.5. And then you get the $97 million. Now, of course,
which they're going to have to do something with that. You would think.
Have to,
but they might be thinking about it like.
But
by the time
he'll
you
be
get to
31
there,
years old.
Yeah,
he'll be 31 years old in 2029. So they'll figure out some other way, and then that's probably where they'll have to pay him if, But think about that. I mean, they've got him from this year until 2029, and he's not making more than $50 million a year.
Yeah.
You look at A.J. Brown in 2030, his cap number is $53.5 million. I mean, there's a lot. Stephen Jones is right. The bill is going to have to be paid.
But they got a window of what, 4 or 5 years where they can just kind of.
They have until 2028 to really run this thing up.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a hell of a window.
And they got a ton of talent. They got a ton. And I'll put it to you like this, and this is what jumped out to me as I was watching that game, that I think every team in the NFL, you hear it said all the time, but everybody doesn't really invest in it the same way. The trenches matter. Yeah. If you've got the better offensive and defensive line, you will win. And we saw it play out in that game. They were playing the best quarterback on the planet And he couldn't be the best quarterback on the planet because their defensive line was too ferocious. He just couldn't be. And by the way, they have the best offensive line, so they were able to protect their quarterback, and they weren't able to get the kind of pressure on him. The trenches were where that game was won and lost, and I think that was the takeaway for me. And then you want to apply it to the Cowboys, and I'm like, okay, look at the offensive line. Man, there's a bunch of question marks on that offensive line right now. Other than Tyler Smith, you don't have another guy that you say, yes, that he is where he needs to be. There are a lot of guys. What we know about BB is he looked pretty good as a rookie. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot of development to do.
For sure.
So if he keeps developing, great.
Okay.
That's still a question mark, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, so Guyton, same thing. Like Guyton had some moments that were pretty good. He's got some developing to do. Steele had a better second half than the first half, but is that a sign of things to come, that he's going to have more of the bad games than the good games as time goes on? Are you going to have Zach Martin back? And if so, is he going to be healthy? Yeah. Like, you have all these question marks on that side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, you got just as many, if not more, questions about where you are right now. So I think just looking at the trenches alone, I think the Cowboys have a lot of questions to answer. If everything works out and everybody meets the standard of those questions, great, it works. There are a lot of questions there. And I think that's the part where I'm like, if I'm going into this offseason and you start talking about draft, as you guys are doing on the draft show, I would be looking at this thing saying, man, build my lines. That's what I got out of that Super Bowl. Build my offense and build my defensive line. I can make everything else work.
It's tough. It's a discussion I know we've had a couple of times already on the draft shows. When
Especially
do you start
the offensive
investing?
line.
When do you start investing on that? And do you want to go 3 out of 4 years picking in the first round on offensive line? And
they did it when it worked for them back with that last crew they had, right?
Certainly. Yeah. There's a case to be made for it.
There was those guys though were collegiately, they played a lot more than what you had with Guyton.
Yeah.
Guys
That's
like
fair.
Frederick, Martin, those guys, they've played, they played, Smith, they've played a lot of football in college. The problem is
Smith came out after
11.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying he came out after his junior year, right? Did all of them come out after their junior year?
I think Frederick and Martin were seniors.
They were seniors. Okay.
Yeah, because
that means they played a ton.
They played a ton of football.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, you caught Guyton on the tail end of the tackles in the draft last year. Mm-hmm. You caught him on the tail end, and that's you're picking 28th, and you're looking at a tackle, and you picked him, and that's he has not played a lot of football. BB played a lot of football and the learning curve for him didn't look as steep as what it looked for Guyton. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, the problem that I have with this draft, and I'm not going to speak for Nick. If you're telling me to fix the trenches, I feel better about fixing it with defensive linemen than I do offensive linemen right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because of the talent pool in the draft?
Talent pool, and I think there's a really big unknown for a lot of these offensive linemen.
And you want to see it play out.
You know what? It scares the F out of me right now, to be honest.
If you were the personnel guy in there, you'd be like, oh, I don't know.
I mean, I have really good feelings about. I have really good feelings about the defensive tackle group. I have really good feelings about the running back group. I have good feelings about the wide receiver group in a way. I actually have a good feeling about the corners in this draft. I'm going to have to go into free agency. I'm going to have to figure out, do I want to, and I was looking at over the cap on this, when you talk, we're not allowed to talk about guys that are contracted already on teams. Okay.
Unless they're going to be a free agent.
Okay. Our linebacker at Kansas City, right?
Okay.
Is I think he's a free agent for you.
Let's make sure he's a free agent.
Yeah,
before we mention any names.
I know, but I'm just saying.
We got your point, though. We get.
But okay, but I would rather spend money on that than I would spend money on what I know right now.
Yeah.
What I know. I think I'm right about that.
What you know right now on the guys.
Osa, Golston, Lewis.
Yeah.
Those kinds of guys.
Yeah.
Nick Bolton will be a free agent.
Thank you. Okay. Nick Bolton. All right. I thought I was right about that.
Yeah.
But Nick Bolton, okay. I don't have linebackers that I could just say, that's my guy, that's my guy, that's my guy. It's just not a deep position. And if you look at the valuation of Nick Bolton as a player, he's on a rookie deal, but he's like a $9 million player. Mm-hmm. So you're probably going to have to spend $12 million to get Nick Bolton is here. But if you look at the valuations of guys like Golston, $9 million player, or Osa, which might be a $12 to $13 million player,
Mm-hmm.
give me the linebacker over what I know with Osa and what I know with Golston and that kind of situation. I can draft the defensive line. I don't know if I could find the linebackers for you. So if I get a guy that's a stud linebacker, and these scouts right now are going to, they're starting to meet with the coaches because they got the staff together,
Mm-hmm.
and now Flus will be able to tell them, hey, I like this type, or I like that type, and the linebacker, I like this type, and I like, they'll be able to kind of map that out. But I just feel that, to me, if I have to spend $13 million on Osa, I would rather spend $9 to $10 million on Bolton, the linebacker from Kansas City. That's what I would rather do.
All right, let's take our first break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the hires that we have not talked about for this coaching staff, particularly offensive coordinator, and what he could potentially bring to the table. We'll do that when we come right back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
Don't put off getting your oil change, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. They're so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's Stay in Your Car 10-minute oil change at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. That means you won't even have time to show off your best touchdown celebration. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
From the field to the festivities, Lucchese embodies the essence of luxury and tradition. Handcrafted with meticulous precision, each pair offers unmatched comfort and style. Stand tall while you're tailgating or cheering in the stands with the Dallas Cowboys collection by Lucchese. Shop the collection today at the Lucchese store at the Star in Frisco or online at lucchese.com. Lucchese, the official boot of the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
How do you tell the world about all the great gifts in the Yeti store? Let her rip, Troy.
All right, folks, let's get started with the Yeti French Press. Enjoy coffee that stays hot for hours in a French press. 34 ounce for you, 6'4" for the cruise. The Yeti French Press. Up next, waterproof bags. Bags waterproof. Submersible waterproof doubles. Waterproof bags. World's mostly water, so get a waterproof Yeti bag. Do I smell something cooking? Oh, new cast iron skillets made to be passed down like Mama's recipes. Take a steak, cornbread, cobbler's pot pie, and potatoes next level with 3 sizes of Yeti cast iron skillets.
Gear, gifts, and product experts. Visit the Yeti store on McKinney Street and at South Lake Town Square today.
Back to the break.
LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game, but don't take our word for it. Digital Trends said that LG OLED G4 has the best picture quality they've ever seen. See it for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. The segment brought to you by blockchain.com.
Ding.
Oh, okay. Ding.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
2025. That's what we're doing. All right. Let's talk about some of the hires that this coaching staff has made. Let's start first with the offensive coordinator, Clayton Adams. What are your thoughts on that hire as offensive coordinator coming from Arizona?
I think it's a strong hire, personally. I think there's an emphasis being taken right now to running the ball. that they want to run the ball with this new system. Schottenheimer talked about it in the presser. Dak mentioned it yesterday at the Children's Cancer Fund event. And you look at the hires that they've made, they are trying to emphasize marrying what Schottenheimer can do from a West Coast passing perspective with an efficient run game. And the Clayton Adams hire is a big key of that. Coming from the Cardinals as their offensive line coach, obviously. I'm going to throw some numbers at you and let me know if it starts getting too confusing, Derek. But this is the splits that Arizona had last year when it came to run concepts. And I'm going to compare those numbers with the Cowboys numbers from last year. So inside zone runs, Arizona ran 19.6% of the time last year, compared to the Cowboys, 31.1%. So a lean heavy on not a lot of creativity. Same could be said with outside zone. When it came to inside zone and outside zone, the two most common runs that you'll see in the NFL, the Cowboys ran one of those two 53.7% of the time. You compare that with the Cardinals from last year. I'm trying to do quick math in my head. 39.1%. Last year. But the one that really sticks out to me and the one that I think will really help benefit this, not only this running game, but this offensive line group is the pull lead run. That is getting an offensive lineman out in space, having him run downfield and pull guys from across the
angle blocks. Easier than
line of scrimmage.
One-on-one blocks.
And Arizona ran that 14.2% of the time last year on 123 carries. Compare that to the Cowboys, 11.9% on 99 carries last year. So there's going to be a lot of different things that you see with this run game, and the Clayton Adams hire is a big part of that. I think you marry that with offensive line coach Connor Riley and what Kansas State has done from a creative running perspective with Deuce Vaughn, with DJ Giddens over the course of the last 3 years. You are going to have a creative run game finally, and I am so happy to say that right here.
So here's my question. You talk about that. Do you have the offensive line personnel to be able to do those things?
You hope you will.
You at right tackle you do?
Yes, I agree.
At center you do? At left guard you do. Now we'll see with what happens who's the left tackle, if it's Guyton or if it's somebody else. But the one thing, some of the better plays that Guyton did have, if you watch Oklahoma tape, was him getting out in space. So the pin and pull stuff is really just –
that's actually easier blocks, right?
It's so simple because you just – and you said 11% Dallas on the – that's crack toss. That's, we saw how they get the ball to the outside. It's take the receiver, crack the edge, then kind of pull guys on the outside. And Dallas had some success doing that. So, the center got better second level during the season. The right tackle is clearly athletic enough to play pin and pull.
I agree.
And the left guard is athletic enough to play pin and pull. So you're going to have to kind of figure out, though, the other spots, if that's what – I think the thing that tells me that I look at those numbers is that people that Arizona got to a point where they're like, listen, you try and stop us doing this, we're going to do this. They're able to kind of adjust. And the thing that I heard about Adams as a coach from talking to people with the Cardinals is that he is a guy that will coach veterans and rookies the same. He'll coach them hard, but not to the point. I mean, he's more of a teacher kind of a guy, not a yeller screamer guy. But this is where guys like Guyton needs a reset. Guyton needs a reset on, okay, maybe a different voice. We saw what happened with Steele when Philbin left. It kind of, Philbin was his guy. So I think that if you tell me that I have a coach that will work with rookies and veterans the same way and teach them the same way, that gives me some hope for Guyton then going in the future.
I'm glad you mentioned Steele, because I think these hires that they have made that benefit the offensive line benefit Terrence Steele more than any five of those guys up front. When you can maximize his athleticism, get him active in the run game once again, rather than just point of attack blocking, front. I think it's going to really help Terrence Steele moving forward.
Well, what I like the best is obviously the running aspect of it, but the point that the Cowboys and Schottenheimer, they all decided to go and hire somebody that has exactly the qualities and the skills where you're lacking. that and that doesn't always happen when the Cowboys go out and hire somebody that you're like,
it's familiarity.
Yeah, like, okay, what else are they bringing to the table? But this is someone that is clearly bringing something that you have been struggling with and were unable to truly find the answers to. It got better at the end of the season, but you clearly needed a change there. So that's the biggest thing that I like is the fact that it's refreshing to finally be able to feel like you addressed an issue, and that isn't always the case when the Cowboys do a hiring or get somebody in here.
Kind of to that same point, I got to give Brian Schottenheimer credit because 25 years as an assistant, you run into a lot of coaches. You run into a lot of relationships. You build a lot of relationships. Obviously, he's a relationships guy. I got to give him credit for stepping outside of his comfort zone and building this staff and bringing in the right guys. Clayton Adams isn't a guy that he has experience with.
None.
Connor Riley is not a guy he has experience with. There's multiple guys you could say that about on the offensive side of the ball. Granted, they retained 2 guys that were on staff already, but I think you ask anybody, those are 2 staff retentions that you would have wanted. So gotta credit Schottenheimer for doing that.
Yep. All right, let's talk about excuse me. A couple of the other position coaches who have been hired. Connor Riley, you mentioned, offensive line coach from K-State. Junior Adams coming from Oregon as wide receivers coach, and Derek Foster as running backs coach. Tell me what you like about some of those guys.
The first thing that popped in my mind is running backs, so we can start there just because it's going to be a position group that gets a lot of conversation this offseason, whether we're talking about the draft, when do you take one, do you take one early, do you take one late, free agency, do you grab one then, or do you wait and grab 2 in the draft? There's going to be a lot of running back discussions that we have not only on this show but on the draft show. Derek Foster, when you factor in his evaluation of running backs, he's drafted 3 running backs as a running backs coach in his time over the course of the last 5 or so years. Have not loved the resume as far as who he's brought in. The best running back that he has drafted, the only one that is still in the NFL, is Isaiah Spiller, and hasn't done a whole lot, obviously. So I wonder how much he will get when it comes to the evaluation of these guys. But you look at how Derek Foster has maximized what he has gotten at the running back position. I think there's a lot to like there. You could look at Austin Eckler when he was kind of overseeing his rise for the Chargers. You could look at Kamara this last year when Kamara was healthy. And we were talking earlier in the year about Kamara being an offensive player of the year candidate before the Saints fell off a cliff. So I think as far as marrying the run with the receiving game out of the backfield, Derek Foster is a good hire there.
Yeah, you start to talk about with Adams, the wide receivers coach. That's a big hire. That's a group of, Dallas has got to figure out some things at the receiver room. Whether that's with Tolbert and players currently behind CeeDee Lamb. This is a pretty deep group that Nick and I are talking about with, the guys that can play the X position, play on the line, allow CD to kind of have some of the movement stuff that he needs. But it's interesting that they went the collegiate route here, because usually it's a group. It's kind of that wide receiver room usually has a lot of egos, and usually so you just wonder, maybe you have to have a player that relates, or a coach that relates to the players, and hopefully he can get the maximum out of these guys. I do think they're going to have to address this thing through the draft. I think they're going to have to get better at that position. So, hopefully, we'll connect the dots here on the show because, Tez Johnson, who is a wide receiver from Oregon, is a very talented receiver. People will probably connect the dots here that you have an Oregon coach that maybe if you go and get a receiver, but he's very similar to some of the guys you have. So it might, we'll see how that all plays out. But the fact that they've gone after these collegiate coaches is an interesting way of navigating things.
All right, let's take our final break. When we come back, we will talk about, we'll do our season in review. We've been wanting to get to this for a few weeks now, but now the Super Bowl is over, and we are clearly into the offseason, and it's time to start evaluating players and looking forward. Let's take one more look back at the 2024 season and get some bigger overall thoughts on what we saw and what we think it means going into 2025. We'll be back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. You might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
If you shout, "How about them Cowboys?" you have that undeniable passion that's the heart of Cowboys Nation. And if you like to drink Dr. Pepper, you love the unique blend of its 23 flavors. Together, your one-of-a-kind fandom paired with the one-of-a-kind taste of a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper is the game day lineup that can't be beat. Better yet, gather your Cowboys and Dr. Pepper fan friends to watch the next game and crack open a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper for everyone. The wins will be even tastier. It's a Pepper thing.
And we're going to overtime.
Erica, how much have I spent on concessions?
For questions about their money, Dallas Cowboys fans can turn to Erica, the virtual financial assistant in the Bank of America mobile banking app. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/Erica by your side. Bank of America, official bank of the Dallas Cowboys. Erica responses may vary. Digital tools featured require downloading the mobile banking app and may only be available on select mobile devices. Erica is a mobile feature only available in the English language. Your chat may be recorded and monitored for quality assurance. Message and data rates and additional terms may apply. Bank of America, N.A., member FDIC.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
AT&T, connecting changes everything.
Welcome back. It is the final segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. Let's do our season in review. I'm going to start this with this big picture question. If you had one word that would describe the 2024 season for the Dallas Cowboys, which of these three best describes? Disappointing, frustrating, or predictable?
Disappointing. Disappointing in the fact of injuries, in the fact of team performance, and the fact of offensive performance too. You could factor it in before the injuries even got involved. Look at Dak Prescott's play. He was on pace to set his career high in interceptions at a certain point. You look at any facet of the game. The run game was disappointing. That was a little bit more predictable. But the overall offensive success was disappointing. The pass rush before Michael Parsons was able to come back into the equation was disappointing. 7-10 overall is disappointing.
I would say expected, because to me, you look at the situation with the coach on a 1-year deal, the staff on a 1-year deal. I mean, what were you really expecting here? The injuries and all that. You had some of the same problems. There's things you saw during training camp that bothered you. As the season was, you're like, well, man, this is not going to be good. So in a way, it's. You kind of got what you were expecting, that this was going to be a struggle because of the front office saying, hey, the coach is on this, the coaches are on this, got a new coordinator here. It just seemed to me that it just never was going in the right direction once we left Oxnard.
I would say predictable, because even though there are times that you're hoping and you get into the emotions and you think, oh, they're going to do better than you. It's that hard over logic type of battle there. But when you go back to the beginning of training camp, and when you go back to how the game ended against Green Bay, and you talked, Derek, about missing that window. You missed that window. You knew the struggles you were heading into training camp with. And then even at training camp, you start having those practices with the Rams, and you see these battles, and you see them getting beat, and you're like, okay, am I really seeing what am I seeing? And you're not really wanting to believe it. But if you look at that, like it reflected back to all the way back to training camp and those battles where they kept getting beat. So it's just a lot of it pointed to that season being bad. That was going to be bad in a lot of different ways because of the resources that you no longer had prior because of the previous year. So, but also I didn't predict the defense to have players that would play as well as they did. So that's another thing. There were a lot of players that played a lot better than I expected them to in the second half of the season. So I don't know. It was disappointing, frustrating, and predictable because you already knew you were heading into a season with a lot of struggles.
You know, I actually said frustrating because I think going back to even training camp, I think we all agreed there were things that they needed to do in order to have success. Yeah. And the big one was the running game. And I think we said it over and over. You gotta give them an opportunity to show you that they can run the ball. And they were not willing to do it at the early part of the season. And so for me, it was frustrating because I think there were things they could have done throughout this year that would have made the season better. I don't think they did them, or I think they did them too late. And Mike Zimmer talked about how he felt like he had regrets because there were things he should have been doing earlier that he just didn't do it. And then later he decided, I'm going to do it, and things change, right? And so that was what was frustrating is I think this team was better as far as their talent is concerned. I think they were better than what the result was. And I think some of that could have changed if they'd handled things a little bit differently from the standpoint of how they were being coached.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next question. Which injury do you think most impacted Dallas this season? DaRon Bland, Tank Lawrence, Dak Prescott, or Zach Martin? And you can talk about Zach Martin from the standpoint of him being out there playing even though he was injured.
I would have to take Dak. Granted, this team was 3-5 coming out of that Atlanta game, if I remember correctly. So they were already heading downward. But I think that ship gets corrected a lot sooner than it did if Dak was still in the equation.
I think that the Zach Martin one really, really hurt them. I should take that back because I feel like that some of the reasons with that you struggle in the offensive line, but. Think about what happened when Bland didn't play, and you had like 7 dudes having to play that position. So Zach Martin was not great, not ideal, but the cornerback rotation at there that just was not good enough, and it not where it needed to be. And Bland was a big part of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bland because he has been a big part in the secondary, and I'm blanking out. What was the rookie guy?
Carson.
Kalen Carson. Poor guy. He was thrown into the fire, and it was a lot. It was a lot for him right off the bat. I think that defense right at the beginning, the secondary definitely needed to have a DaRon Bland healthy again and being able to play alongside Trevon Diggs, who was healthy at the time. So I think that was a big hit for the start of the year.
As we sit today, which player do you think, or which player are you most concerned about their health moving forward? DeMarvion Overshown, Dak Prescott, or Trevon Diggs?
You said more concerned about?
More concerned about.
Ooh, this is kind of
as we sit here
tie.
today.
Yeah, that's kind of a two-way tie for me. I would have to say Trevon Diggs just because he's coming off of these back-to-back knees, and there's more money invested into Trevon Diggs than there is into DeMarvion Overshown. When you compare that they've both had back-to-back knee injuries, that's a tough one because you have a $100 million price tag on Trevon Diggs, and you need him to not only be on the field, you need him to perform. And I think there were times last year after he really started battling with that knee around the Atlanta game that the performance was starting to dip alongside the health. So that one hurts a lot. I think there's ways you can work around Dak. You can run the ball more. You can keep him in the pocket more. You can emphasize, trying to make him a different quarterback. And in some ways, there's some ways you can get around making him not as mobile moving forward, which sucks, but it might be the reality that they're facing if they want to keep him around for 4 years. There's not a lot you can do with Trevon Diggs and his knees.
I think it's Dak. And I think it's Dak because of the reasons you were talking about, Nick, and the fact that you're going to have to read. And maybe this is why Brian Schottenheimer was named the head coach, is because he has an understanding of Dak's limitations and what he can and cannot do. And so to me, it's going to be about, can you find the running game? Can you find the ability to make him a pocket passer? How much mobility is he going to have? Are there things you're going to have to completely eliminate from the offense that we've seen other NFL teams implement and play well with them? So the Dak injury is, to me, is really, really big, and how that, I think it's going to affect the offense going forward, because if they don't tailor things to him, I'm curious to how productive he can really be.
I would have to agree with the Trevon Diggs one as well, because initially I wanted to say DeMario and Overshown, but with him, I think he's gonna be fine. He has so much working in his favor as far as like his youth, then also his personality and how much positivism he has. I think that really affects when you're recovering from anything, his positive outlook at things. It's a very different personality than Trevon Diggs. And there are things that I've heard about him when it comes to what he's doing in, let's say, rehabbing or a practice. There's a certain lack of discipline that I've heard there that it's going to be challenging. He's going to have to give it 100%. And if it doesn't, then that's going to go into the season. You're going to see him just on to the side. We're going to see him walking around at training camp, just watching from the sidelines. So I think that's the biggest one, because just like we talked about prior, that the cornerback position is sorry, Derek.
What?
The way you're standing right now because of our new layout is freaking me out. It's like,
because I'm not looking at you?
Yeah.
I noticed it earlier in the show. I was like, is Derek okay?
You thought somebody was over here.
Yeah, I did. I was like,
at my camera.
Over here. Yeah.
It is freaking me out. Guys, we have a new layout on the show, so it's just it's
I think it's interesting.
Yes, but
Chris.
But my point being,
that's
fault. A position, just like you said, you paid the guy. You're gonna need him, and you don't have time to, because of all the cap salary and blah blah blah. That's gonna be a key position of a guy that's a veteran guy that you need him to be able to perform. You don't have time to waste, and I think that's one to keep an eye on, because I know DeMarvin Overshown, he's gonna give it 100%. Dak, he's gonna give it 100% as far as the recovery and everything that they need to do. I don't feel 100% on Trevon Diggs and the way he handles things.
There's no way this front office could have known what they had ahead of them when they signed Trevon Diggs to that contract in the offseason of 2023 or training camp of 2023. But there's going to be a lot of internal knee slapping if they have to let a guy like DaRon Bland walk because of that contract. And it's a tough one, because I feel like you really can only pay one or the other. And unless there's some major restructuring that can be worked out with Trevon Diggs, DaRon Bland's going to be a tough one to keep in the fold.
Yeah, that's also one where you wonder if the traditional wisdom in the NFL says go with the young guy, right? Mm-hmm. No matter what, if they're equal, go with the young guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so it does make you wonder, when they get to that decision, does that affect the decision as well, that he's the younger guy and they try to figure out some way, if they can't keep both, to keep the younger guy? Because I think that happens a lot in the NFL, because it's just typically it's better to have the younger guy, All right, let's move on to the next question. Which rookie performed at a level farthest from your expectation? And this is a little bit of a tricky question, because when I say farthest from your expectation could have been really high and they underachieved. Your expectation could have been lower and they overachieved. So who was farthest from what you expected from them of these 5 candidates? Cooper Beebe, Tyler Guyton, Kalen Carson, Maris Leofau, or Marshawn Kneeland?
Kind of a two-way tie again for me with Beebe and Leofau. Beebe, whenever we were looking at him at camp, I know we've talked about it on this show before, but we were 2 weeks into camp and this guy was still snapping it all the way to Ventura, and we were like, man, this is going to be tough.
A little ways away.
Yeah, it was nowhere close, and I was like, man, this guy might need a year of seasoning before we can throw him in at the center position, and he ended up being fantastic. So, and I'd have to give the same for Leofau. I just didn't see him being as major of a contributor that he ended up being by the end of the year. So, credit to Leofau. I don't mention Guyton just because I had an expectation that there were going to be a lot of learning curves. Were there more than I expected? Yes, but I think there should have been an expectation that he was going to have some growing pains in his first year.
Felt like I was wrong about Carson in a way of being this higher level, and I was wrong about Leofau because I didn't know that he was going to play the way he did. And those are the two that, to me, the Carson one bothers me a lot because I really felt like that he was going to come in and really compete at the outside corner spot. You know, and the fact that they had to run through all those guys, and he was part of that, and you know, him not being at training camp some as far as, you know, missing with injury and time and stuff like that. Then he got hurt, you know, and then it probably was a big whirlwind for him. But unfortunately, he did not play at the level that I've seen him play at Wake Forest, and that bothered me a lot. And Leofau, I questioned that pick right off the jump. If that really was the right pick with running backs on the board and stuff like that. But he played at a much higher level than I even was willing to give him credit for.
Yeah, Leofau, he surpassed my expectations because the moment he stepped on that field, there was no like misbeat. There was not confusion, and that's something that takes a lot for a rookie guy, like the field awareness, your ability to react in the time that you need to. And he didn't miss a beat. He was on there. As soon as he was given the green light, he went on out there and started making plays, tackling, hard tackler, just being aggressive in that way. So that was impressive for a guy like him to have so much focus and being able to take advantage of the opportunity that appeared and how quickly he did it. That was impressive.
I know we're running over time, but I had one more question, so we're going to try to get this one in quickly. Which rookie do you expect to take the bigger jump in year two? Cooper Beebe, Tyler Guyton, Kalen Carson, Maris Leofau, or Marshawn Nealon?
I would go Marshawn Nealon. I think he's going to have an increased opportunity here. Granted, with the free agents that are here at the defensive end position with Chauncey Golston, Carl Lawson, DeMarcus Lawrence, there's going to be an increased availability for Marshawn Nealon. I think he takes advantage of it now that he's healthy.
I think Carson, I'm going to bet on him once again. I think the talent's there. I think he got caught in a situation with him being injured, him missing time. You know, he's going to come back with a much better understanding. He gets kind of a fresh start too with the new secondary coach there. So hopefully he will be able to show the things, like I said, that Wake Forest. He was an outstanding player for the Demon Deacons, and hopefully he'll be an outstanding player for the Dallas Cowboys. He's got that kind of ability.
You know what? I'm going to go with Carson as well. He's a guy. We've seen him. I just think it was a lot. It was a lot for him. For someone as young as him, you could see how offenses they were attacking him over and over and over, and that's a lot to handle for a guy like him. So, but going back to things that we even saw at training camp, that the plays he was making. I mean, you've seen the talent. You've seen. He has it in him. So hopefully he can come back this year refreshed, renewed, got some self-evaluation to do, and then now he can put it back into action because I think he's a very talented player. The situation wasn't a good one for him this past year.
All right, that's a wrap. We appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be back next week. We'll get a little deeper into this offseason. We'll try to add a little flavor to this thing, maybe get a little draft talk going with our guys from the draft show. I think Amber might even have a little game for us next week. We'll see. Until then, for Nick Harris, Bryan Broaddus, Ambar Garcia, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?